All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Joshua, and I'm going to be your presenter today. It is promptly 1 p.m. here. My computer clock looks like it's behind a little bit here, but I'm I'm sure it's 1 o'clock here, even though my computer shows the wrong time here. We'll have to make that adjustment on this machine. We're here to talk about paying by direct deposit and paying employees using from Church Windows Payroll using direct deposit. Before we get started on that, a few things. Um, we're only going to be discussing paying by direct deposit for employees today. We're not going to be dealing with or discussing any of the setup that goes along, prior to paying your folks via electronic, EFT or direct deposit. So the assumption here is we're picking it up from the standpoint that the setup is complete and we're simply now ready to pay our employees electronically. Okay. Before we get started on that, the pages in our workbook that I'm using are from P102 workbook, Payroll 102, pages 7 through 10. If you don't have those workbooks, you may want to consider looking at those on our workbooks page on our website and purchasing them. But as if you're unclear or you'd like a printed copy of what I'm using as a guide for the webinar topic today, those workbooks are what I'm using, those pages specifically. Also, a recording of this webinar event will be available on our YouTube channel by no later than 5 p.m. Eastern Time this Friday. So if I type up here youtube.com/Church Windows, it takes us to the Church Windows Software YouTube channel. And under here, things like playlists. This one will be here under our payroll. Where's our payroll here? Right here, Church Payroll. Videos here by this Friday, no later than. So if you need to revisit this topic, it'll be here. It'll be there before the end of the week. Okay. If you have any questions, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel. It's just me, so if I don't get to your question right away, please be patient with me. I will get to it eventually. Use the little red arrow on the top of the sidebar there to minimize the webinar control panel. And all I ask again is that we do keep the questions at the topic at hand about paying folks electronically, not about setup or any other payroll or accounting questions, as I'm not prepared to answer other questions about the software today. So the first thing as we go into payroll and we're ready to pay these folks is the process to pay your employees electronically doesn't start any differently than if you're writing a check to those folks. So we would simply go to payroll and calculate payroll. We would enter, whatever pay period ended or settlement date that the bank, we're wanting to get our folks paid. Generally, banks have a lead time of some requirement of some kind, whether it's 2 to 3 days or 5 to 6. You'll need to find that out from your bank, as opposed to how much lead time they need on the date on the file in order to get those folks paid successfully. So we're going to go ahead and set this out 3 days from now to the 20th, and we're going to click Next. You could set up a department for direct deposit employees if you wish. I know who our direct deposit employees are here, so I'm going to choose specific employee contractor, and we're going to check just Larry and Jerry, and we're going to go to Next. And notice, one of the important things that I always try to make sure that users on my support calls are aware of, notice that each one of these payroll screens are numbered. So we're on Calculate Payroll 3. I would click on the employees if necessary and make changes to their pay as needed. Once I'm ready to go to Next, I would click Next. I'm always fond of recommending to users to click on Browse Payments. It just allows us to examine the net pay amount before we post anything. There's nothing to void at that point. If it all looks good, we can simply click Cancel and print our reports if we wish, and we go to Next. And the first thing that we want to notice about direct deposit is this box right here called Create EFT Transaction File must be checked in order for the system to produce the file that we are then going to transfer or send to our bank to pay our folks electronically. Okay, if that's not checked, the system's going to want to naturally produce or put a check into the print queue expecting us to print a physical check to give to that employee. So make sure that Create EFT Transaction File box is checked if you're wanting to create that file. So we are going to post to payroll, we are going to create EFT transaction file, and we are going to transfer it to accounting. However, one of the things I want to show here before we do this is, no, we're going to go ahead and click finish on this. So we're going to go ahead and click finish, and it says payroll posted to employee file successfully. So it has posted it to Church Windows Payroll. Okay, so we click OK on that. And so the next window that it opens is step 2 of our paying folks electronically or via direct deposit, which is our create EFT transaction file number 1. So first of all, notice it shows us our employee name and the net pay amount. Then it shows the actual transaction number that's in the actual EFT file that's being transmitted to the bank. Okay? And we do have the enable EFT box checked. All right? We're not going to check the box on the left labeled stub printed because I haven't printed a stub for those employees yet. If I did already have a stub printed, I would check that because I can skip over that process. But in this case, I don't have a stub, and so I'm not going to check those. Okay? Verifies our settlement date up here at the top is 10/20. I do have some options here if necessary. So in this case, include transfer number on stub, how many units. Basically, these are similar to our check printing options because the stubs are incredibly similar. It's just the stubs we're going to print are printed to plain paper. So there's just some printing options you have on this EFT file options if you wish. Once we go to next, it then is going to open a preview of the actual stubs that I'm then now going to physically send to my printer. So it really doesn't look any different than a regular paycheck, except notice right here at the bottom right of our check itself, it says to be deposited via electronic transfer right there. That's the main difference. This is not a transferable check. This is not a check that they can physically take to the bank, so you want to ensure that you have plain paper in your printer, and then we would simply go up to the print icon in the upper left corner and physically send those to our printer. Okay? Then I would click next, and here if I've printed them, it will have the stub printed box checked. Okay? I didn't physically send it to a printer because I'm not paying these folks, real folks here. But once I did click the print button, these should be checked automatically. It recognizes that print click that you make when you print them and physically send it to your printer. Final thing here to make a note of is right here at the bottom. It says ready to create EFT transaction file. Clicking finish on finish will create an EFT transaction file containing entries for the employees shown above. Once this file is created, you will not be able to create another transaction file for the same date, and you will not be able to void the payroll calculations for these employees. That's not entirely true now. We can void an EFT pay in the 2016 version. Okay? So I've grabbed my stubs off the printer. They look good, and I'm going to click Finish. It then now says the second step is completed by EFT transaction file has been created. So step 2 of our creating or paying our folks electronically has been done or completed here. Okay? So once we click OK on that, it says there are no checks to print. So if I did have employees, were paying both direct deposit employees and had checks to print for other employees who didn't have direct deposit, it would immediately open up my check printing window, allowing me to print checks for those regular employees. But in this case, I don't. So it's telling me I don't have any checks waiting to print. That's good. So now we would click OK. It then now opens up our final step of our payroll calculation process in Church Windows Payroll, where it's now wanting us to transfer our payroll over to accounting. Now, assuming my setup of my employees is good and these account numbers are correct, I would now then simply click the transfer button in the upper right corner. These of course are set up under our account number setup screen under System Administration. So I have no doubt these are right. So now I'm going to simply click Transfer, It says transferring payroll data to accounting. And then it says here are the transaction numbers that have been created and would I like to print my accounting transfer audit report. So, you can click yes or no. It's just a report. We're going to click no on that for the purposes of our webinar. And it takes us back to our main payroll screen. So as far as Church Windows and Payroll are concerned, our employees for direct deposit have actually, those payroll transactions have been recorded in both payroll and accounting. But we're still not quite done yet. Okay? The next step is we have to actually copy that EFT file in order then to transmit it to the bank. Okay? So now what we have to do is we go to Payroll and we choose the option called Copy EFT File. So right here, notice we've got our settlement date or pay date of 10/20 here, that it defaults to my A drive, or what used to be a floppy drive, port letter. But we're going to click Browse, and we're going to put that file somewhere then that we can then send it to our bank or transmit it to our bank, however they've asked you or stipulated that you do that. Generally these files are transferred to the bank in one of three ways. You can either put it onto a flash drive and physically walk it into the bank and they can do that. You can send it as a file attachment to an email. You can actually then, or you can actually upload it through a secure link at the bank's website, which is probably most commonly how it's done these days. But the process date, of course, is important because that's the date that the bank's then system will import that file. So a couple of things about this. The file that Church Windows Payroll produces, this is really, really, really important, is this file, this .dat file that Church Windows Payroll produces is not an encrypted file. Okay? So, if there are concerns about security or privacy here, because there is bank information in there, you'll either want to ask your bank about encryption, file encryption in terms of uploading it to their website and asking about that. Normally they will have an SSL setting or secure socket layer options on their software and on their servers that will protect the data or encrypt it for you. But if you're not, then we would advise that you may want to get a program that will encrypt it for you. Generally, it's not a problem because most banks do that automatically. Okay? Church, this file that we're creating is not an encrypted file. Okay? It's a very important distinction. Okay? So yeah, once we've then chosen the location where we want it to go, so we're just going to scroll up to the top and choose desktop here and click OK, and we simply click Copy File. It says file was successfully copied to, shows us the path and the file name. So in this case, the file name is EFT, followed then by the date, so 16/10/20. So the year falls first, then the day and the month, or the month and the day, .dat. Now when we click OK and we minimize payroll now, we see this EFT file right here called EFT 16/10/20.dat. That file now is ready for me to get to the bank however they want me to do that. Uploading it on their website most likely is how that would probably occur. Okay? Once that's uploaded into the bank's website, you can then distribute your stubs to your employees, and then simply the money should be in their accounts at the time that the bank does so on the 20th of October in that case. So, before we move on to voiding an EFT pay, I just want to show a couple things under payroll. If I go to calculate payroll and we again try to put in 10/20 and go to next, a couple things here is if I again choose my direct deposit employees and go to next, it tells me I already have employees with that same pay date. I can restore those, folks. But notice here it says create EFT transaction file is unavailable. Why? Because it already says here direct deposit cannot be done for this pay date with a settlement date of 20 because an EFT file already exists. Okay? So there's simply confirmation for you that the system is doing as it should. Also, it's not going to let us create an EFT file for a date prior to the same date on the computer. So if I do try to go to next, and notice here, create EFT transaction file is not available because it says you cannot calculate an EFT pay file for a date that exists or occurs before this date. Okay? So just be aware dates are very important with regards to this. I'm being asked, do you have to do your entire payroll in 2 separate steps, one for time for direct deposit, one time? No, absolutely not, Diane. You can do it all at once. It'll do your electronic employees and print their stubs where you can print those to paper first, and then print your paychecks for your regular employees and deal with it all in one fell swoop. Yeah, you don't need to do it in 2 separate pay runs. Okay, so with just a few minutes left here, we now can and do have an option where you can void an EFT payroll. If you click on payroll here, notice we do have an option here called void EFT pays. Okay. If we click on that, we notice that we have a number of EFT payrolls for the year, but here's our one for October 20th. The thing to keep in mind about direct deposit payrolls is it's all or nothing. So if I have a problem with one direct deposit employee, I can't void the direct deposit file for just that one person because it's all one big DAT file. Okay, I have to void it for everybody and then recalculate the payroll for those same direct deposit employees and create a new file to send to the bank. Okay, so either you click on the pay date. Let's close out of that and just redo it quickly. Here's all of our pay dates. Once you click on one date, it automatically isolates it for you. Or you can go up to your pay date menu at the top left and choose the pay date. And then once you click on those names, then we simply have to click void in the upper right corner. It says 2 entries, selected entries voided successfully. Click to undo. OK to continue or cancel to undo. We click OK. As with virtually all of the payroll situations or circumstances, we get prompted with this that says payroll entries were voided that had previously been transferred to accounting. Do you want to reverse the accounting transaction to those payroll entries? I'm generally never going to instruct you to say no to this. Okay, so we click yes on this, and it reaches over into accounting and voids those transactions in accounting as well. So if I recalculate it, I would then retransfer over the recalculated pay over into accounting as well. Then I have transaction numbers matching up in both payroll and accounting. All right, so the payroll transactions reversed in accounting, we're all done on that. But that's it, folks. I mean, honestly, it's really no different than calculating your payroll for your regular employees and just printing their stubs to plain paper. But the final step that's different, of course, is you then take the file and have to transfer it or upload it into your bank so they can then import it into their website and pay your employees electronically. Our direct deposit, our payroll administrator uses this file, and I get paid electronically using the same file that's produced from Church Windows Payroll. It works perfectly. But yeah, this is how it's done. So I hope it's helped. Hope it helps. All right, with about a minute and a half left, I'm finished with the topic based on the pages on the workbook. Let's see what questions we have here. Other questions we have. Which bank does this go to? The employee's bank? Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, this file goes to the employer's bank, in this case, Lenita. So this would be a file that you upload to the church's bank. Then they will send all the necessary information out to the various employees' accounts to get those folks paid. Great question. Is there any additional cost to use direct deposit? Not for Church Windows Payroll, Robert. Certainly not. That's all included in when you purchase and own the payroll module. But your bank may have a charge or something for those electronic transactions that occur between the church's accounts and the banks and the church's website or bank accounts and the employees. That will be a question you want to ask your bank as you're considering using and setting this up with them. That's part of the setup process. That's one of the questions you want to ask them when you speak with them about it. Oh, you're most welcome, of course. All right, well, I'm just kind of waiting to see if anybody's typing in any other questions there. Again, we will most likely have a webinar on the setup process for direct deposit at some point, folks. We just don't have it scheduled yet. Again, you've got paying employees via electronic or direct deposit in your help files. So if we go into contents under payroll and we type in direct deposit, and here we've got using direct deposit to pay employees. So it pretty much deals with very similar to what we're talking about here, but this is all about the setup. All right here. Yes, again, this webinar will be available in a recording on our website, on our YouTube channel, by no later than 5 p.m. Eastern Time this Friday. All right, folks, I'm not seeing any other questions popping in here, so I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. You're most welcome, of course. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for everybody. We hope it's been helpful, and we look forward to seeing you at another Church Windows webinar event. All right, have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.